They had a tremendous season, greatest in history. It was a fail. Epic fail. This offseason, there were a lot of adjustments. They were dealing with salary cap issues and the retirement of Patrice Bergeron and other players. They used whatever resources they had. They brought in some veterans, some young players, and some pieces. To lose in 6 games this year, I think it's a passing grade. I don't want to call it a successful season, but I would give this year a pass. I would say all in all, with this roster and what they dealt with this year, it's a passing grade. Passing grade, but absolutely disappointing. Back-to-back seasons of disappointment. We'll leave it there at 617-779-0985. We got Skaz here. We're going to be joined by Ty Anderson at some point. So we'll get his thoughts for everything happening with the Bees and what's next for the Bruins now. So we'll take your calls. You're coming home from the game. You want to react. 617-779-0985. We'll take a quick break. We'll line up all the phones for you, and we'll react to the Bruins season ending in 6 games to the Florida Panthers, who now advance to the Eastern Conference Finals to take on the New York Rangers again. We'll have more for you guys coming up next. I'm Joe Murray here on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
You're listening to Joe Murray on 98.
All right, back here, 98.5 The Sports Hub. I'm Joe Murray. Here tonight until midnight. That was the game-winning goal for the Panthers. Forsling off a rebound through Wotherspoon's legs and right by Jeremy Swayman. A fluke of a goal, if you ask me. But that's what happens when you get more shots on net. Started saying that this is a passing grade of a year for the Bruins. It's a passing grade. I'm not going to sit here and call it successful. There's some things I do want to get into, and we'll certainly hear from you guys, and we'll hear from Ty Anderson tonight as well. He's going to join us in postgame. Passing grade for this year. Absolutely. Absolutely. The team overachieved. They had a good season. This was a bridge team, a bridge roster that got to Game 6 of the Eastern Conference semifinal. But it hurts to lose back-to-back seasons to Florida. It hurts to lose 3 games at home in a playoff. If we can be critical here, they did not get enough shots on net. This team needs to be able to get more pucks on net. And by the way, Sergei Bobrovsky was outstanding tonight. The Panthers don't usually win these type of close games. They're 4-1-5. They put up goals, and if teams can get at Sergei Bob, I like to call him, he was playoff Bob tonight. I tip my cap to him. But he needed more pressure, and the Bees didn't do enough. And the chances they did have, Bobrovsky was awesome. Not enough shots on net. They got destroyed in the faceoffs, especially in the third period and in their own zone. And the too many men on the ice penalty, they're 7th for the playoffs. Someone needs to be held accountable for that. Someone needs to be held accountable for not being able to count how many men are on the ice. So I think the team overachieved this year. It's a passing grade. It was a bridge roster. They made it to Game 6 against one of the better teams in hockey who went there last year and are going up against a team in a rematch to go back again. The Bruins were in it and had a chance. That's what's disappointing. They had their goaltender stand on his head and keep him in games. They couldn't score. They couldn't get shots on net. They couldn't get pucks out of their own zone. They couldn't win faceoffs. They couldn't count how many men were on the ice, and they still made it this far. They still lose at home in front of you. That's what's unacceptable. That's what's disappointing. Things look positive for the future, Bruins fans. I know you don't want to hear that right now. I know you don't. There are holes. There are issues with this roster. It's not the coach. It's not the general manager. And it certainly is not the goaltender. But this is disappointing, losing at home. This is disappointing. You got your Game 7 history on your side. You wanted this to go 7 games. They had a chance to make it go 7 games. It's disappointing. I think the Panthers were the better team. We all saw it. But the Bees, they hung in there. They had their chances. And that's what's most disappointing. So we'll lead it off there at 617-779-0985. We'll take a couple of calls. We got to get the headlines in a bit as well. There's a bunch going on in the sports world. Let's lead it off tonight with Jack, who's down the Cape. What's up, Jack?
What's up, Joe? Thanks for taking the call. Can get straight to it. I'm not blaming Sweeney for this, but I do not trust Sweeney moving forward. We have so much cap space. He's going to do something like he's done in the past, giving Allmark a no-trade clause, something like that. I do not trust him at all with all of this cap space this coming year. Fire him. Fire him, fire him, fire him. Thank you.
So I don't think Sweeney should be fired, but if the Bees want to move in another direction, this would be a hell of a time to do it. They have holes to fill. They have money to spend, and they have young players they've developed. Now, they don't really have any draft picks again this year. That's on Sweeney. But what he did this year, when he put together a bridge team that made it this far, I'm not ready to go there. But if you wanted your take to be, with all the money that they have, they want someone better to make the decisions, that's certainly on the table. I don't think he deserves to be fired by any means. Mark's in Rhode Island. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Joe.
Hey.
Thanks for taking the call. Hey, do me a favor. Can you count to 5?
I can. Yeah, I know how.
Well, hey, I got a new job for you.
I know, huh? They'd pay me a lot
Get
of money.
you right behind the bench. Yes, sir.
Someone needs to be held accountable for that, huh?
Oh, absolutely. 7. I mean, not the type of record we want to set.
Not the type of record, man. You coming home from the game?
Yes, sir.
How was it tonight?
The crowd was good. The noise was loud, but I mean, I don't know what it is about clutch games at home, especially against the Panthers, but can't shut them out.
Do you feel like you wasted your money?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know, Skaz. I think I'd want to be in the building tonight for this one. Now, there is the heartbreak and disappointment and all that, which you guys are already used to that. You should be numb by that by now. You should be numb by it. That's what's so disappointing is what is the heart of that team? What is it? What is it? They showed guts in the previous game. They showed their guts. Again, I don't want to pile on the team this year. I don't. But the simple, little, bare minimum mistakes are the reason why their season has ended right now. Just count how many men are on the ice. Actually take shots on net. Win face-offs in your own zone. Bare minimum things. They couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. And not winning on home ice, I got nothing for that one. Kevin's in Beverly. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Joe. I just think that, everyone's talking about how the Bruins beat expectations this year. And I think everyone said coming out of the Toronto series, whoever came out of that series was going to get waxed by Florida. But you need to reset your expectations. Like, the Bruins easily could have won this series. They should have won tonight. They had opportunities tonight. They had opportunities in Game 4, and they couldn't capitalize. And I hate that narrative that, at the beginning of the year, they probably beat expectations, but they easily could have won tonight.
Kevin,
they could have won the other day.
I hope you don't think I'm setting a narrative that, they had a chance against the. Do you think that the Panthers were a better team? Because I certainly do.
Oh, 100%. And I think they showed that in a lot of the games. But I thought tonight we had opportunities.
Yeah.
The game 4, we had opportunities. We had plenty of breakaways.
I agree with you. Please don't think I disagree with you. All I'm trying to say is they had one shot better than the Bees because the Bees couldn't take any shots. They had one shot better than the Bruins.
Yeah.
One shot. That's the difference.
And it wasn't that much better either. I mean, Swayman dragged them through the playoffs, and Swayman should have had that.
I think it was a softie, but at the same time, when you get shots on net and rebounds and goes through the guy's legs and this and this and that, all those things happen. Fluke goals happen, and that's why you have to have more shots on net.
Yeah, I agree.
Appreciate you, Kevin. We agree. Bruce. And then,
yes.
How you doing?
Hey, how are you? Thanks for taking my call. I agree with most of the callers tonight. I think Swayman played an unbelievable series. This series and the last series, I'm very, very disappointed with the coaching at this point, and I think there's definitely something going on with the officiating in the NHL. There's definitely a conspiracy going there. I think they're trying to build Florida hockey, and I want you to weigh in on that. I think you got out-coached. You put Paul Maurice in that situation, I think we win these games.
I think that Montgomery got out-coached too, but I don't think it was anything dramatic. And I understand that people want the fury. I'm looking at my tweets right now. Joe, stop being positive. I want anger. I want fury. We're sick of losing, sick of weak players, sick of excuses. Yes. But guess what? Now you have the money to fill the pieces. Now you have the young prospects. Now you can get rid of your dead weight. If you want to make decisions on certain players, you can. But here's the deal. You have a goaltender. You have a coach. You got the GM. You have pieces in place. The losing on home ice, I got nothing for you. I don't know how they fix that. I don't know how they fix that. I don't. But to be critical about losing faceoffs and too many men on the ice and not getting enough shots on net, that's why they're going home right now. That's why. The Panthers were the better team. And you know what? I think at times Toronto was the better team. The Bees should have beat Toronto, and they did on an excellent play in a Game 7 at home that was history on their side. In this series, they got beat by the better team. But they made it to a Game 6, and they beat, you know the story. They beat themselves, and they lose at home. With under 3 minutes to go in the game. I know you're sick of losing. I know you are. But this season, it's a passing. It's a pass. I know it's easy to say anything but a championship's a fail. Not a lot of people thought they would make it to a Game 6 against the Panthers. And yes, they beat themselves. They can't count. It's embarrassing. Someone should be held accountable for that. That's embarrassing. Absolutely. I don't even know what they would have done against the Rangers if you know what? Who would have happened in a Game 7? I don't know. All I know is this team loses faceoffs. Barkov was the best player on the ice. Bobrovsky was the better goalie tonight. That's a fact. Those things happened on your home ice. All those things happened. They were still in it until the end. They don't get enough shots on net. They don't win faceoffs. They make stupid turnovers. They need upgrades. This is the year to get them. 617-779-0985. I see you guys lined up on the phone lines. Feel free to react as we're here until midnight tonight. We got to get a look at the headlines, and we'll tell you what's going on in that NBA game. There's another hockey game as well. We'll do that right now in headlines.
Sports Hub headlines.
Bruins season has ended. They lost 2-1 tonight to the Panthers. They'll be moving on to take on the Rangers in the Eastern Conference Finals. Pavel Zacha. in a game 6 at home to Florida after all the mistakes they made, face-offs they've lost, too many men on the ice, not enough shots on net. They still made it this far. It's fair to be critical that you don't like the fact that they lost at home. 3 games at home, back-to-back seasons to Florida at home. I don't have anything for that. But to me, people want me to be Fury. They want Fury out of me. They want Joey Murta tonight. I can't do that. It's absolutely disappointing the way that they lost. But the season on a whole, you know what holes they need to fill. And right now, it's up and to the right for the Bees. I know fans don't want to hear that. But let's ask Ty Anderson of 98.5, thesportshub.com, and, of course, the Sports Hub Underground podcast. Ty, your thoughts? People want Fury. I don't have any. What about you?
I don't have a ton. I mean, did anyone think they were going to win this series? Like, I think you wanted a respectable showing, and going 6 games against a team that is better than you is success. And yeah, you want them to win, but I don't know. If they got out of this series, I think they're going to get swept by New York. I really do. I think that when we look at things as a zero-sum equation, we're going to be pissed off a lot. Like, 31 teams end the year pissed off, right? Like, it only ends good for one team. And so I think what the biggest thing for me, it was a bridge year. I spent all year, Joe, calling them the Moneyball Bruins because they could not replace the talent they lost, but they tried replacing it in the aggregate. And for the most part, they got valuable contributions from those guys. And so for me, they didn't bow out in the first round for the 3rd year in a row. Had they blown it against Toronto, which many people thought they would, whether that was in Game 7 or Game 1, they didn't think they were as good as Toronto. You didn't stall for the 3rd year in a row. And I think that means something. As a franchise, you never want to be stuck in the mud and have 3 straight first-round exits. You don't want to go backwards, right? 3 straight years of first-round exits, that would be, at the very best, stalling, and at the very worst, going backwards as a franchise.
So, speaking of the franchise in a whole, yes, the last 15 years have been a complete disappointment. They have the one championship, but the rest of it has been disappointing. After tonight's loss, though, I see the holes. Clearly, when you lose faceoffs in your own zone, you have too many men on the ice, which somebody needs to be accountable for. So at some point, someone needs to be accountable for that one, but just not enough shots on net, too many turnovers, defensive issues. The holes that they have in this roster, and I don't want to look ahead just yet, but I feel like they're in a good position up and to the right like a stock. It's okay to be disappointed, but yeah, they made it this far. They had their chances. Tonight, I thought Bobrovsky was awesome. Barkov crushed the faceoffs, and I thought their guys stepped up where you thought Pavel Zacha may have got them going early on, and really they just couldn't generate any scoring chances from there. That's at least my thoughts, Ty, on the night.
Yeah, their lack of a high-end center, I think, really reared its head in this series. It's one thing to try to neutralize Matthews, Tavares, and what Toronto throws at you. It's another thing to try to neutralize Alexander Barkov, who is one of the best centers in hockey, and you saw that all series long. And then, what it did when you get Sam Bennett back for the Panthers, like, you're able to balance that now. Now you can put Verhaeghe and Tkachuk with Bennett, and you have Barkov, who's basically like Bergeron in terms of you can put anybody with him, and he'll drive that line. And that was a task that was it was too tall. It was too tall for him to overcome. This team desperately needs, and I know we don't want to look too far ahead just yet, but they desperately need another high-impact center. And they did their best this year to make do with 0 cap space, 0 capital trade for a guy like Elias Lindholm, for example. But it is the glaring need moving forward. I don't think you can enter next year and say, okay, well, we got Matthew Poitras coming back. He's going to be healthy. You need a legit, I would say, 70-point center who can win about 55% of his faceoffs. I think you need another one of those. I don't need a superstar, but I need a guy that I can lean on and know that he's going to win a key draw. He's going to come through with some big plays when you need them most. And namely, you need a guy for David Pastrnak. At the end of the day, people are probably pissed about David Pastrnak. He had Morgan Geekie as his center, and I like Morgan Geekie. He should not be David Pastrnak center in playoff games. That should not be a thing.
Yeah, I don't want people thinking we're making excuses for the Bruins because those will come out soon, right? The injury, right? We probably already heard one on DeBrusk. What's the update on that one?
Yeah, Jake DeBrusk suffered a broken hand just before the bye week. Did not fully heal for him until just before the playoffs. I thought he was really good in the playoffs too, and this is another guy that you got to make a call on. I would aim to keep him personally. I think he's the only win that you have from that 2015 draft class, and that first round, rather. You got a good second-round pick there with Brandon Carlo. But I just look at that free agent class, and unless you're getting a legit superstar wing like Jake Gensel or Sam Reinhart, I think you just keep DeBrusk because I think the price is going to be worth it. I think it's going to age well. I think that's a contract that would age well. If you get him in at $5.5 million per year, I think when the cap eventually continues to increase up until probably $100 million in the not too distant future, that contract will look really, really good for your team. And he's been progressing as a two-way winger. I think he's been really good. Their best efforts came with him moving his feet. I thought he finishes with 11 points in 13 playoff games this postseason. Not bad. So I'd keep that guy around if you can make it the money work.
All right, Ty, let's take some calls. I know people want to get in on it. I want your reaction to their reaction because people are furious tonight. Tom is in Mattapan. Hey, Tom, you're on the Sports Hub.
Hey, thanks, guys. It's just so frustrating with the home losses, like in 3, 4, and 6. It's just I don't understand how they can't sustain anything at home. Face-offs, changes, it's just frustrating. If any can comment, it'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, what do you think about the losses at home, Ty?
Yeah, it's a huge problem. I have been in the past. I have been one to blame the crowd. The crowd brought it tonight. They were fantastic. I didn't think they had the nervous energy that sometimes gets in the team's head. In my opinion, they brought it. It's a problem though. They play better on the road than at home. That's got to change. And how do you change that? Right? Like, do you bring in a culture shifter? A guy who knows what it takes to get the crowd on your side and to follow up on the words. A lot of guys, they talk that big talk of, we got to get the crowd on our side, and then they come out tentative, and you're like, well, wait a minute, that's not going to help. That's not going to help. I thought the Bruins had a good start tonight. They didn't get a goal when they should have. They were on them all. They were all over them early, and they didn't get enough out of being all over them. So that's a problem. But yeah, no, the home ice. This will go down as one of the worst, if not the worst, postseason on home ice in Garden history. 2-5 overall, I believe, is the record. When they went down to Florida for Game 5, they were obviously at 2-4, which, according to my research, was the third worst home winning percentage in a Bruins playoff run, minimum 6 home games. So it's got even worse tonight. So it's got to be, top 3, bottom 3 all time, and that's you never want to be there as a franchise. And so really bad home ice run, but they got to figure out how to turn that. They weren't ready for enough games, Joe.
Yep.
Like tonight was the exception. Game 4 was the exception. They weren't ready to go in enough of these games, in my opinion. I thought especially game 3. Game 4 again, they had a good start, but it wasn't sustainable. They ran out of gas, it felt like, by the end of that first period in Game 4.
All right, Dan's in Burlington. Dan, you're on with Ty Anderson and Joe Murray.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Ty. Yeah, I was at the game, the Garden. It sounded great. I think the most disappointing and frustrating part of it all is it's the same stuff, different year. The turnovers in the defensive zone, the can't get the puck out of the zone. I saw tonight probably 3 separate instances where McAvoy, different defenseman, holds on to that puck instead of taking a shot looking for that perfect setup. I think that those shots on net are what you need, and Florida proved that. And going off what Ty said about a first line center with Geeky, I think he played great. But I think another thing is the icing problems. They're not able to skate the puck out of the zone, especially with your face-off issues. You're not going to win those defensive zone issues. We saw it in the Toronto series as well. They've led to some goals, and I think that's one of the more frustrating parts of it all.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think there's a legitimate disconnect here between the coaching staff and the players. And I don't mean that in controversy. I mean it like the system, I don't think that not being a volume shooting team worked for these guys. They built a roster that, in my opinion, was designed to funnel pucks to the net, have your second, third, fourth chances, and bury those. And if you're going to keep holding and holding and holding, well, guess what? All the shooting lanes that you need as a grind team are going to close on you. And then you're going to dance into nothingness. There was too many times I thought throughout this series, throughout this game, where they were passing up shooting lanes. They were being stubborn with their breakouts. The Florida forecheck, hey, give them credit. They did a great job in this game. But I thought the Bruins were stubborn, where they would hold. They were not making decisions quick enough. And I tweeted this tonight, but the Bruins had their best success tonight when they were playing with tempo and they were playing with purpose and pace. When they tried slowing the game down, it allowed Florida all the time in the world to reload, to get their ducks in a row, to attack with speed and force a turnover. That's what I saw. All night long. Hampus Lindholm iced the puck, I think, 3 times. And all 3 times, he has the puck on his stick and he's just holding it. You got to skate up and try to unveil a new option, or you got to do something, man. You can't just stand there all game because you're not built to win that way. You're just not.
All right, Ty Anderson's here. We'll have his reaction until midnight tonight. I see the loaded phone lines as well. We do got to get a headline. And, of course, this hour of the Sports Hub is brought to you by Valvoline and Oil Change. Enjoy quick and convenient vehicle maintenance this month. Visit NewEnglandOilChange.com for 15% off your next drive-through oil change at Valvoline and Oil Change. Now open in Franklin, Billerica, and Peabody. We'll have more with Ty Anderson. We'll take a quick break, get you the headlines. We're reacting to the Bruins season ending in Boston once again tonight here on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Don't go anywhere. There's more Joe Murray. On the way.
3 minutes left in regulation. They now take on the New York Rangers in the Eastern Conference Finals. NBA playoffs. Well, one other game right now. No score between the Stars and Avalanche. NBA playoffs. Pacers forced the Game 7. There's still a minute to go, but they're up 116-99. The Celtics await the winner of that, and I believe that series will begin on Tuesday. There is an update on Kristaps Porzingis, who could be back somewhere during the Eastern Conference Finals, and the Red Sox lost tonight 9-5. Headlines, they are brought to you by Safety Insurance, providing comprehensive coverage for your auto, home, and business. Ask your independent agent about safety. I'm Joe Murray. We got more with Ty Anderson coming up on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Listen to it, laugh at it, get mad at it, agree with it, argue about it. It is Boston Sports. Boston Sports. And it is all we do. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Panthers, Ty Anderson joining us here from 98.5 thesportshub.com. Ty, what did you think of the return of Brad Marchand tonight?
I thought he gave him a lift. I did. I thought that he added another layer to their offense. I think that their offense, basically had two guys who, I would say one guy actually, who could shoot the puck consistently in games 4 and 5, and that was David Pastrnak. And so you have another guy who can create offense kind of out of nothing. I thought he looked good. I didn't see a ton of rust. There was a few moments where I caught him kind of, breathing heavily almost. Like not that his condition was like totally gone because he only missed a couple of games, but working your way back from a concussion, is never easy. I think especially as you get older. But overall, I thought he gave you what you could reasonably expect out of him. Their power play was just such a mess in this series, and I don't want to lump Brad in that too much. I think the problems with their power play begin up top. I think they're stubborn. I think they don't shoot enough. I don't know if Charlie McAvoy is a true power play quarterback. I'm beginning to think he's not. And that's fine. If he does everything else really well, that's fine. You have Mason Lowry. He took a big step forward this year, obviously. This postseason, I would say specifically. So you should have some optimism there, but their power play's got to get fixed, I think. But if they're going to go on a deeper run next year, they got to be able to score some time league power play goals, and they just weren't able to do that in this series and the playoffs really as a whole, in my opinion.
I only asked this question because people are asking me in the chat tonight, what is Brad Marchand's future, and you expect him back next season?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. No, but like Brad, barring an injury, Brad Marchand is going to play into his early 40s. He is going to be more like Mark Recchi than Patrice Bergeron. Like I'd put it that way. That when I talked to him about this, he basically has said in the past, and he continues to say that if you told him when he was 11 years old that he would walk away from the game before he emptied every ounce in that bucket, he would kick his own ass. Like that's like how he phrases it. And so I think he's going to play until his early 40s, barring an injury. I think that's what he's going to do. And so I don't see him going anywhere. He loves being the captain of this team. He really embraces that. I thought he was really impressive for a first-year captain, navigating, finding your voice as a captain. It's not easy. When you're playing second fiddle, third fiddle to leaders like Zdeno Chara and Patrice Bergeron, and you want to even go before that, like Mark Recchi wore an A here, Brad Marchand's rookie year. Like, it's kind of hard to find your own voice, right? When you're playing sidekick to those guys for as long as he did. But he did. And I thought the team, they really followed his lead. And think about the big moments he had, right? And there was a lot of stuff that happened off the ice that, that he was a big part of, right? And you got a lot of young guys finding their footing. You got a lot of guys in different roles and trying to find out who they are or rediscover who they are as players. And I think Marchand was a really underrated captain in that regard. So I don't see him going anywhere. I think he's going to play for another 5 years, honestly.
Do you think the workload of Jeremy Swayman caught up to him tonight, considering just all the chances the Bruins had, and just he was just always there. And tonight, I'm not going to call the game winner a softie. It was on the rebound. It went right through Wotherspoon's legs, right past him. It wasn't the toughest goal, but I just look at it as when you take more shots, you get more goals. And that was really the difference in the game there. But do you think he wore down as the series went on?
The rebounds got a little bit bigger. I would say that was probably the only sign that I saw of fatigue. They were not being corralled as easily as they were, let's say games 4 and 5 against Toronto, games 1 and 2 against the Panthers. And so that's probably the only real sign of fatigue that I saw. At the same time, I thought that he was nails. I thought he was fantastic. Like, you lose this game unless he posts a shutout, right? Or I'm sorry, unless he allows 0 goals, you're losing this game tonight. And so it's a tough way to live as a goalie. And you can't win every game 2-1, especially when you're leaning on a guy for the first extended run of his career. He's never started. He started what? He started 11 games in a row in a span of 23, 24 days. He's never done that. He's never done that in the AHL. He's never done that in college because they only play on weekends, and he's never done that in the NHL. So I think Swayman is we can be mad about what happened tonight. We can be pissed that the season is over. I mean, I'm bummed. I got nothing to do now until September. That's kind of a bummer. I'm not going to lie to you. But Jeremy Swayman being the number one and looking good, that is the biggest takeaway I have from this year, is that we finally have clarity in terms of the post-Tuukka era, right? Because Linus was good. He was good last year. He fell apart in the playoffs when you leaned on him for too many games in a row. I don't think Swayman fell apart. I thought he gave you enough. And to have the guy, it means everything in this league. Look at Toronto. Toronto has the best team, one of the best rosters, in my opinion, pure talent. But they have terrible goaltending. It kills them every year. You got great goaltending, and that's the biggest takeaway for me, is that you found out that you have the guy with Jeremy Swayman, and now you got to build around that.
What do you expect his contract to be? Starting at 7-7?
I think 8-8.
Oh.
I think 8-8. I think he played his way into 8. I think they'd love it to be 7. They'd love to do the Tuukka contract all over again. But here's the problem: is that when I talk to agents and people around the league and front office types, they're trying to forecast a cap that they believe is going to jump up significantly. Talking 2 or 3 years from now, when the TV money kicks in. And when there's expansions and everything, there's all this money now being made. They think the cap could be $100 million. And so guys right now are trying to forecast contracts that aren't going to look terrible, in say 2 or 3 years, where you're like, wait a minute, that guy's making 9.5 and I'm making 8 and I'm one of the top 5 goalies in the NHL. So I think that's a problem that a lot of guys are having. But Swayman's earned it, right? And you took him to arbitration last year. He was pissed about arbitration. My understanding is that his agent is dug in terms of getting a really good rate on his next contract, and Swayman held up his end of the bargain. He played phenomenal in the playoffs, and so I think you got to pay him. And I think it's 8 times 8. That's what I think it is right now, and we'll see. I think we've seen Linus Ullmark in a Bruins jersey for the last time, to be honest with you, but we'll see how that all transpires. But if Swayman is going to make that kind of money, Linus has to go. It's an unfortunate, part of the business, but it is what it is.
All right, Xanadu coming home from the game. Hi, Xanadu.
How you doing? First of all, Ty, I just want to put out there, since I'm on the air with you, I love all the work you do. Your Bruins coverage is top-notch. When you're on the radio, I make a point of listening. I make a point of reading your articles. I love everything you do, so I just make sure they say that to you. As for you people saying they're mad, I kind of have the dad's approach. I'm not mad. I'm sad. I've been to the last 94 playoff games, and I'm sick of walking out of that building with that feeling. But tonight, I appreciate that they showed up. And I kept asking myself, how is this team still playing hockey with all of the turnovers and all of the missed opportunities? But at the same time, I kept saying, maybe they will keep playing hockey because they've been going this far. Why couldn't they make it to the third round? All these chances, they seem to have just been the little team that could, and just one goal short tonight. And I just wish they buried one more, because I think they could have gone a lot further than anybody was giving them credit for. Thank you for the airtime. Have a good night.
All right. Giving you props, Ty. Giving you props.
I mean, it's the turnover. That third period was rough. The Florida sliced the rink in half, and they couldn't do anything. And to get this far, with the mistakes they were making is probably a miracle. They should have probably lost Game 5. If we go back and watch Game 5 and how they played in their own end, Johnny Beecher handing a puck to Kyle Okposo in the slot. Okposo doesn't score, but he really should have. You look at the last second chance by Ryan Hart, that Swayman stops. They were not crisp in their own end. And we're going around the board here and we're talking about different needs that they have. They need another high-impact defenseman as well. Hampus Lindholm, I think you got to work on how you deploy him. I don't think you can deploy him in as many D-zone minutes as you deployed him this year. I think you got to have a more 50-50 even split moving forward. You got to let his confidence grow offensively because I think it took a massive hit this year. But I think you need another type who is going to be nasty and physical and put other teams on their heels. I don't know if they have that. Their defensive approach feels very just survive to me. I'd want them to be the killers. I want them to be, have a guy back there that instills some fear in the opposition. And I don't think they have that guy back there. And that's one thing I'd like to see done. I'd like to see him on the left side, I think, because, you got your rocks there with McAvoy and Carlo. And then your third pairing, your third right side looks like Andrew Peak right now. I liked him. I thought he was solid. If you can get me one more guy, and then you have a future of Lowry, you got Lindholm, and then you got this, this face eater here. I like the complexion that you have there. I think all the best teams that go deep, they have bigger defenses, but they also have defenses that are versatile in nature. You got your offensive guys, you got your smashers, and you got your two-way types. And I think the Bruins need another guy who can dictate the tone physically back there.
All right, Hunter is in Texas. Hey, Hunter.
What's up, guys? First off, I want to give a shout-out to my friends driving back in the car back home from the game. Tough one, and, I wish I could have been there and there was a different result. But I'm already seeing a bunch of stuff about Jim Montgomery's job, and if anyone tries to call you guys saying that Jim should be fired, you should just hang up on them immediately. It's the same thing year in, year out, and someone has to be accountable, and clearly it's not the coach. Felger will try to tell you that, Bruce won the cup or whatever, but Montgomery took this team to a legitimate chance at the Eastern Conference Finals with Danton Heinen as a top six forward, and he's playing Parker Wotherspoon heavy minutes in the playoffs. The roster was just not built to go this far, and on paper all year, they were really bad, and this is a really important offseason to legitimately be a contender next year. You guys are talking about Ryan Hart and Stamkos, and they're all there for the taking, and I don't think Don Sweeney really has the guts to go out and get them. I think he likes a more conservative approach, and I think he might shoot us in the foot yet again, and someone has got to be accountable other than the coach, and all eyes are on him and whoever makes the moves this summer.
Thanks, Hunter. That's the second call tonight, Ty, with someone attacking Sweeney. I actually like what Sweeney did this year, but is he the right guy with the salary cap space that they have and the moves that they need to make?
Yeah, I can't attack Sweeney right now. I mean, the man had like $25 in cap space this year to build a roster. I think he squeezed them as much as he could out of the dirty, rotten lemon that he was given. And this is the fallout of going all in last year and coming up short. That's why last year stung so bad, is because you knew what was going to follow. You knew that you weren't going to be able to keep all these guys, and they were all going to leave, and you had to try to find veterans who still had something left in the tank, and PTO guys, and things of that nature, and you hit on more than a few of them. But, again, you got Morgan Geekie playing top-line minutes by the end of the day. You got Danton Heinen was your best fit with Zacha and Pasternak late in the year. These were guys, one of those guys got non-qualified by the Seattle Kraken, and the other one was looking for work in August. You got limitations there, and so I don't blame him. I do want to see what happens this summer. As it relates to Jim Montgomery, it's worth noting he is in the final year of his current contract, entering the final year next season. There's no extension as of yet. So is he a lame duck, or do you commit in the summer? And I think there are legit questions that you can have about Jim Montgomery that extend beyond the roster. I don't know if he's a great tactician. I don't know if he adjusts that the way he needs to in a playoff series. Sometimes he's a bit too stubborn with things that he does. And if you continue to come out flat at home, well, that's one of his biggest strengths, we were told. He's a motivator. He gets guys to play for him. Well, if you keep coming out flat at home and keep losing at home in the playoffs, are you getting the guys up enough? Like, I wonder. And so that's a guy I look at. Like, you got to commit to him, or are you comfortable with the whole lame duck status entering the final year? The Bruins have never done that. As far as, like, under this tenureship, they've never done that. They extended Julien before his final year. They extended Cassidy, I think, before his final year as well. I think it was before his final year. I don't know if he had 2 left or not, but they've never done this. But I wonder, like, do they hammer that out, or do they say, no, we got to see some more before we commit to you for another 4 years, like, or 3 years, whatever it is. But, like, that's a legit question. But with the cap space, I want to know what he does. I want to know if does he go big fish hunting, or does he try to just build a complete team with a bunch of, $4 million signings versus, 1 8.5 or 1 9, and then a bunch of other filler. I mean, you got to wait and see, but this is a market where he can attack some needs, and there are a few teams out there, in my opinion, that are going to be looking to trade off some pieces, like Vegas. Like, look at Vegas has some guys that you might be able to get for a song this summer, based on their cap situation. So, this is kind of a tenure defining year, in my opinion, for Don Sweeney.
Ty, you got another segment, man? I wanted to look ahead to the next year, if that's good with you.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we'll do it. Ty's going to hang around. We'll look ahead to next season. And Montgomery said something after the game tonight. You just kind of got my antenna up now, wondering about his future. We'll get into that coming up on the other side. You're listening to 98.5 The Sports Hub.
You're listening to Joe. You're listening to Joe Murray on 98.5. You're listening.
right, back here 98.5 The Sports Hub. That was Jim Montgomery on what he said to the team tonight. It was an honor to coach them. Ty Anderson joining us here from 98.5thesportshub.com. Ty, you mentioned lame duck year going into the final year of his contract. I mean, just looking at the history of Jim Montgomery, his success in college, helped build whatever Dallas is doing right now. Best coach in the league last year, best record in the league, and only a couple of games away from it this year as well, for a couple of wins. I think someone should be held accountable for the too many men on the ice. I think it's going to come down to Montgomery in the long run there. But do you think him making so many adjustments in the game led to some of those too many men on the ice? And, you mentioned the lame duck year. His comments, I know it's end of the year speak, right? Honor to coach you, but do you think he wonders if he's coming back next year?
Yeah, I think that if they had lost to Toronto, I think the conversation is a bit more real. Right now, my only question is, do you commit to him long term, or do you let this following year play out? And I think that's a legit question. Right now, I am reluctant to sign an extension. If I'm the Bruins, I'm reluctant to sign him to an extension. I want to know a bit more about the plans to develop some of the younger players. It took way too long for Mason Lohrei to be at the level that he was at. And you understand certain parts of it, but late season hockey, Mason Lohrei was behind Kevin Shattenkirk. I don't see the value in that. I just don't. Same thing. Towards the end of Matthew Poitras's time here, he was playing 9 minutes a night. Georgi Merkulov led the Providence Bruins in scoring for the second year in a row. And he was up here for 4 games, the last game of which he played, I think, 6 minutes. You got to start developing some of these younger players, right? And so this was allegedly one of the strengths of Jim Montgomery. I think that you got to see more of that. And so this is a team that cannot continue to rely on scrap heap veterans and PTO guys. We just talked about this. They can't do that again and again and again. You got to commit to some of these younger guys. And I think with any coach, it's hard because coaches want to win that night. Their jobs depend on them winning that game that night. But I think development, I think you got to do a little bit more there. And I wonder if the Bruins share that feeling as well.
Oh, I agree. Anyone who came up this year, right? I mean, even the Oscar Steens of the world, guys like that, they contribute somehow because of the players around them. But this season, Swayman clearly is the guy going forward. Mason Lohrei, as you mentioned, he was pretty. Poitras had some signs this year. Beecher, right, kind of is a player. So although this was a transition year, it was a pretty good year for that transition. So looking ahead now, do you think they bring back any of these unrestricted free agents? You mentioned DeBrusk. I think I agree with that one. But JVR, Maroon, Heinen, Grzelcyk, Forbort, Shattenkirk, I think they're all gone, right?
So I can tell you that Grzelcyk and the Bruins have not talked extension. So I think he's gone. I think Forbort is gone as well. I would imagine that JVR, Shattenkirk, I believe those guys are going to be going elsewhere as well. The guys that I would keep around personally, I love Pat Maroon. I don't care that he moves like a tugboat. He is a guy that rattles some cages. He's a guy that I was talking to players during the playoffs, and one guy told me we all feel bigger when Pat Maroon is out there because we know that he has our back. That's the Lucic role, and Lucic is not coming back. He's done. It's over. I would keep that guy around, especially because he's over 35. So you could, in theory, sign him to a contract that is a $800,000 base salary, but you work in $500K in bonuses. Hey, if you score 10 goals, you get this. If you play 80 games, you get this. You can make it work to your advantage. Maroon, my understanding, talking with him, loves Boston. He loved being a Bruin. He really enjoyed his time here. Heinen's another guy. If you can keep Heinen for 2 years, 3 years at $1.5 million, give him some security. It's a guy that you can move around your lineup. He can play left wing, he can play right wing, he can play power play, he can play PK. You can put him on all 4 lines, and that line won't be worse. At the very best, it'll be even with him out there. And so I think that's a guy that I'd try to keep. Like, those are two guys that I would try to keep. Everyone else, I'm okay moving on because I just think you have to turn the page, right? And, at the beginning of the year, I said this about Grizzly, right? Like, they didn't trade him. They didn't want to trade him. But then when push came to shove again, he was scratched. What a waste of time. What a waste of time to keep that guy around and then do the same thing you were doing last postseason with him and the year before that, for that matter. Like, and we talked about Lowry. Like, what if you forced the issue and you traded Grizzly back in the summer, and then you said, hey, Lowry, you're going to have some bumps and some bruises along the way, but you're going to be better off for it in March and April in the playoffs because we're going to ride with you. They didn't do that, and they kept Grizzly in that role, and then they scratched him at the end of the day. A colossal waste of time for everybody involved, in my opinion. So I think you just got to move on from him in that regard. And Forbert, you love him, but he's so limited. He's just so limited that I can't see how you bring him back, personally.
What about Fabian Lysell? Where do you see him settling in?
Well, he's a really interesting case. I think the Bruins at times have been frustrated with him. He's a guy that he has all the skill in the world. He plays a little bit smaller. He plays a little bit dangerous. He puts himself in bad situations. He's been injured a few times. Concussions are an obvious concern, but the natural skill that he possesses is something that they don't really have in their pipeline. So I would like to see him get a look next year. But a bit telling that, he wasn't called up with the Black Aces. He wasn't given a look at any point this year. At one point, Joe, he had over a point per game, and they didn't give him a look. They were still, trudging out all the other guys in spots, and so I do wonder. I wonder if he's going to be maybe leveraged into a trade. If you're trading Linus Ullmark, but you want to extract maximum value, do you throw him in there to make it part of a hockey trade? For a team that needs a goalie, the Devils are going to need a goalie this year. If you could trade Linus Ullmark and get a Dawson Mercer type out of that trade, I do that. I don't know if Ullmark alone gets you there, but these are kind of the questions that. This is why this is a 10-year defining summer for Don Sweeney. I think this is the most important summer since. I don't want to say 2015 because that was his first one on the job. I would say since maybe 2021 when Krejci left and you had all that cap space, you had the Tuukka Rask uncertainty with the hip injury. Like, this is probably his most important offseason since then, I would imagine. So he's got cap space. They got needs. Let's see what happens.
Who would be your number one free agent target for the Bruins?
That's a great question. Because I would love Stamkos. I don't know if you can make that money work. I'm going to say Elias Lindholm.
Okay, I was going to say the same name.
Yeah, Elias Lindholm, a guy who wins faceoffs.
29 years old, right? You got it, faceoffs right there. Boom.
Yeah, he wins faceoffs. When he had Gaudreau and Tkachuk as his line mates in Calgary, he put up 90 points. He had a 42-goal season in there as well. Here's my question, Joe, is that we are looking at the Bruins right now. They need a center right now. Do you want to spend all of your money right now when you have Leon Draisaitl really close to hitting free agency? And there's been rumblings that Leon Draisaitl might not re-sign in Edmonton. And I can tell you that the Bruins have a strong German base because they've had Seidenberg and they've had Marco Sturm. I can tell you that Draisaitl and Pasternak are friends. Would Draisaitl want to come to Boston? But that's a dangerous game, though, because this wouldn't be the first time that you've looked at a player and said, oh, he's close to free agency. The Bruins could get him. And then what if he re-signs? Now you didn't make any sort of move. So I think you have to get a center this year. I'm just curious how much money they spend on who it is. Because you have Lindholm, and then you have your next tier of options, like a Chandler Stevenson in Vegas. Like he'd be a solid fit, but he's kind of along the lines of what you already have with Coyle and Zacha, like a guy who's a good second-line center, but probably not a top-line center. But the Draisaitl thing, like there's legit rumblings that he might not be long for Edmonton, depending on what happens there.
Skaz, you got a thought?
I was just wanted to ask Ty's thoughts because he is a center. He's a little older. He can play the right wing as well. But what about someone like Matt Duchene?
Yeah, so Matt Duchene's played majority wing the last 2 years, and so but you need a winger too. Like, I think you need another winger, too, so I'm not totally against that idea either. And so so, like, Duchesne's in the group that also has, like, I would love Tyler Toffoli. I've always liked Tyler Toffoli. I think that's a great guy that would take some pressure off Marchand and Pasternak. You know, a middle six winger. You can put him on your third line or your second line. You know he's good on the power play. Like, they need a type like that as well. So if you want to throw Duchesne in there, I'm cool with that as well. My dream offseason is a center, another scoring wing, a sturdy 19-minute-a-night left shot D, and then, you know, you kind of plug everything else in from there. But I think that those are the three things that I've circled as, like, must-haves this offseason. Another scoring wing, a center, and a big minute-eating, sturdy, physical defenseman.
All right, Ty, we got a couple calls. Let's get back to the phone lines here. We got Jay and Braintree. What's going on, Jay? Hey, Jay. He wanted to ask about Allmark, which, by the way, I know you mentioned a few names here, but are they going to have any difficulty moving on from Allmark? Is it like this is a guy that won a Vezina in 2 years? Like, are they now begging teams to take him? And obviously, you still have to go by those teams that were on his no trade list. Do they still have to abide by that?
Yeah, so the trade list actually goes down. Doesn't help all that much, honestly, Joe. It goes from 16 teams to 15. So there's gonna be one team that's now added to the list instead of the 16 that he has this year. Really curious to see what happens there. I believe that Linas would prefer to stay on the East Coast, but do the Bruins want to trade him to a team that is on the East Coast, needs goaltending? A team I would look at would be New Jersey. They have a win now team. They desperately need goaltending, in my opinion. Ottawa needs goaltending, but I have to imagine Ottawa is on his no trade list because Ottawa is basically Buffalo, Canada, and I don't think that he would ever go back to Buffalo. So, that team's a mess. I don't think he would go there. But then you look out west, right? Like, he didn't want to go to L.A. Would he want to go to Colorado? Would he want to go to Edmonton? Like, I just wonder, there, like, if those teams lose, what if those teams fall short in the playoffs, what happens? Because goaltending has been a weak spot for both those franchises, and so I wonder if there's a fit there. But I do think that he's on the outs. I cannot see them running it back, given what Swayman is going to command on his next contract. I don't think you're going to have a $13 million crease. I don't see that happening. I can't see them doing that. That would be insane, in my opinion, to run it back with that. And so. But you got to get real value, right? Like last year, that was a problem, is that on top of the no trade, everybody was aware of your cap situation. They were all eager to rip you off. And Don Sweeney said, no, we can't afford that. We can't afford to give a guy away just because we want the cap space to sign Tyler Bertuzzi, right? Or whoever. Like we got to get real value if we're going to trade this guy. And so I think they're still going to drive a hard bargain. The cap going up is going to help teams, and we'll see what happens in Nashville. Nashville, UC Saros has been rumored to be on the block, but they made a surprising late-season run, and so we'll see if they are more, standing by their man there. They have a good prospect in the minors who's coming off a great year with Milwaukee, the AHL, and so we'll see what happens in Nashville. But if UC Saros stays in Nashville, Linus Ullmark should have a really good trade market, in my opinion. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Murph's and Dennis. Murph.
Joe, what's happening?
How you doing?
Doing all right. Tough loss tonight. I'm with you, though. I think they lost to a better team. I think they're a little closer than people give them credit for, especially with that diamond in the rough there, Swayman coming through in the playoffs. It's coming out party for sure. And I agree with the gentleman you're with now is
Ty.
About Ty Anderson, very good, always very insightful. But I would like to see them get some help up the middle. It's tough. I think that the Bruins kind of you could see the centers for the Panthers kind of take over that series a little bit with Bennett coming back with Barkov and stuff. But they're a lot closer than people think. I really like to see them do some moves in the offseason. The drafting has been kind of questionable with Sweeney, but let's see what he does. I mean, What do you think? You think Elias Lindholm or someone like that, someone who's a younger center? I hate to get an older center personally, but anything will help.
Thanks, Murph. They don't have a first, second, or third round pick this year, Ty.
They got like no picks. I was talking to someone and they were like, "I'm going out to the draft to cover it." And I was like, "Why? They're not picking like at all. It's such a waste of time to go out there, interview the fourth round pick or whatever they have." I think that they're going to make a move. It's just a matter of where. Like, where do they attack? Like, do they want to go the Nashville model, which was, hey, we can't get a high-end center, so we're going to load up on really strong defensemen, and we're going to have a great top four. We're going to bring in some guys going to complement, McAvoy, Carlo, and Lindholm, or do you want it? Like, I think you have to address the center position. I think you're crazy if you run it back with the same group of centers next year and then you just add Patra. Like, no, that's not enough. It's not enough. You're in the Atlantic Division. The Atlantic Division is an absolutely wild west of centers. Between Barkov and Bennett and Matthews and Tavares. And now Tavares taking a hit, but he still wins faceoffs like crazy. You look at your division, Braden Point, assuming Stamkos resigns in Tampa, like that could be an option for you as well. But like assuming he resigns there, your top three teams in the Atlantic all have a great 1 and 2 center, and you got Zacha and Coyle, who are fine in their own right. They're fine, but I think this year should prove to you that you need that true number one. You win 55% of your faceoffs kind of center. I think you need that guy.
All right, Ty, you on the hockey show tomorrow morning?
I think so, yeah. I don't know what my time slot would be now, because I wasn't going to be available. Had they won tonight, I was on a flight down to Florida, so I got nothing but time now, so I think I'm on there tomorrow.
Well, Ty, excellent coverage as always, one of the best in the business. We love having you on Postgame, my man. Great job, and we'll be listening to you all through the season and the off season, and maybe we'll catch you tomorrow morning, whatever time you're on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much, and I'll say this again tomorrow, I know, but huge thank you to the audience. I'm amazed I got to do this for a living. And it doesn't happen without the people caring and without you guys and everyone at the station, helping me out along the way. And so I'm eternally grateful, and we'll keep on doing this because this is our passion. This is what we love, and we'll all be on a duck boat together someday.
I just was going to say, one day you're going to be on a duck boat, so the players will get you up there, and maybe I'll bring back Lord Marty's Cup. We kind of tossed that away a couple of years ago. So,
well, I don't know. We got to do something to change the magic around here. So we'll figure it out.
Especially in that building, they gotta Kyrie Irving that thing. You know what I mean?
You got to bring the gold seats back. These black seats are bad news. I'm telling you. There's something about these seats that has a bad aura.
Talk to someone there. They need to change that.
I think I'm gonna.
All right, Ty. Excellent job, my man. Thanks for your time tonight, bud.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right, he's Ty Anderson. Check out all his work on 98.5thesportshub.com. He's got a podcast, too, called Sports Hub Underground. Matt Doloff. Go check that out as well. He'll be on the hockey show tomorrow. We'll get our final headline of the night and final thoughts. And now we know the schedule for the rest of the year. We'll give you that coming up after the headlines.
Sports Hub headlines.
The Bruins season is over. They lost 2-1 tonight. Florida will advance. They take on the Rangers. the Bruins radio network this year, the Jeremy Conley, who left this show and then took on the executive producer role with the Bruins this year. So Howie in his retirement as well helped out. James Scaramuzzino. We had Jeff Williams was a part of it. Ryan Beaton as well. Mark Capello. Excellent job. I know Jim Louth was a part of it. Rick Radzik as well. So am I missing anybody else?
Matt Stenberg and Ryan Beaton
Matt
also
Stenberg.
huge helps.
There you go. So great job by everybody over at the Bruins Radio Network this year. Outstanding. And if I wasn't hard enough, I probably should reiterate that the Bruins' goal that they gave up tonight was a softie. It's hard for me to sit here and criticize Jeremy Swayman for what he did this postseason. The goal was soft. It was a fluke goal, if you ask me. But isn't that how you thought if the Bruins were going to lose, that's how it was? Some cheap goal, whether it was late in the game, in regulation, or in overtime, you knew they were going to break your heart. Like, I think we all knew they were going to break your heart. But in a way, I'm more positive at the end of the season than upset. They went 6 games with one of the better teams and I'm not giving them excuses. This team was a bridge team. But next year, they got money to spend. They know where their holes are. They've spent money on some big players. They have a goalie they can move. I think this team's in pretty good shape going forward here. So let's see what they do in the offseason. But no doubt about it, though, it's disappointing. This in the long run, we might look back at this Bruins group for the last 15 years as the biggest underachievers in Boston sports. So I don't need to be mad or Spicy Joe or anything like that. Just, you look at the names Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, Zdeno Chara. Imagine if Tuukka Rask gave up that goal tonight. That was James Scaramuzzino's take. But you see all those names, right? All the great ones. Pasternak now. Disappointments. Most of them 1-1. Pasternak hasn't. Most of them 1-1. The rest of them? Underachievers. Don't need to be angry and mad to say it like that. By the way, the final hour of the show is brought to you by Valvoliness and Oil Change. Enjoy quick and convenient vehicle maintenance this month. Visit NewEnglandOilChange.com for 15% off your next drive-through oil change. At Valvoliness and Oil Change, now open in Weymouth, Canton, Bedford, and Natick. One last thing before we get out of here. We now know our schedule. There'll be a Game 7 between the Pacers and Knicks on Sunday. Winner of that plays in Boston on Tuesday in the Eastern Conference Finals. Another advantage for the Celtics. And they may potentially get Kristaps Porzingis back in this series if needed. That from Woj tonight. So we have full shows Monday, Wednesday, Friday next week with the Bruins gone. We get Celtics basketball rest of the way here. So I'm back here on Sunday. I'll be on with Sarone Battle. Thank you to Skaz. Great job tonight as always. And I'll talk to you guys Saturday. And then we're back for a full show. Monday night, 7 o'clock. I'm Joe Murray, out here on 98.5 The Sports Zone.
Don't go anywhere. There's more Joe Murray.